Hello to all, I am Aparajita from Political Science Honours and I am going to present on affirmative actions policies in India. And by going through this video, we came to know about what are affirmative actions, why there is a need to take such an action, what India had done in respect of it, and what are the experiences of people. So let's begin. As we know, India is a large diverse country in which different people have different culture, different practices, different religion, different languages, and due to some historical factors which we would discuss later, there are majorities and minorities group, socially and economically backward classes who had faced a lot of discrimination and were even denied to enjoy their basic rights and liberties. The need to integrate such group has made our constitutional makers opted for providing constitutional safeguard to such groups in the form of affirmative actions. So affirmative actions are the actions, or we can say policy, in which an institution or organization is actively engaged in effort to improve the opportunities for historically excluded classes. These mainly focuses on employment and education sectors. In India, by affirmative actions, we always understood reserving certain number of seats for such minorities group in a desirable institution. The underlying objective is to reduce the extent of underrepresentation of such groups. Basically, the meaning of affirmative action has evolved over a time, and as it is an outcome of 1960 civil rights movement in America, which intended to provide minorities group equal opportunities and equal rights. Minorities in Americans are Hispanic American, Native American, and African American. And if we look into India, India has constitutionally committed to preserve civil liberties of all individuals. So the affirmative actions in India called the reservation system has provided reservation for the three classes, that is scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and the variety of other backward classes. Now we would look into what was the system of discrimination that these classes had faced and why there is a need to take such an action. Our Hindu caste system is a social hierarchical form which was justified on the division of labor. It has four classes, or we can say four varnas, called varna system, in which first one is the Brahmins, which consists of the priests and the scholars. Second one is the Kshatriyas, which consists of the kings and the warriors. And the third one is Vaishyas, which consists of the merchant and the business classes, and the fourth one is the Shudras, which we called untouchables and were consist of the serfs and the laborer. Traditionally, these untouchables had a very strict system of the segregation and even had a very rigid social mobility. They were not allowed to sit and live with higher upper caste people. They were even denied to access to shops, to temples, to schools and all other public places. Basically, they were considered as the physical and the spiritual pollution of the society. The founding fathers of our constitution were aware of these kind of situations, so they were argued that if a doctrine which insists on formal equality would in fact perpetuate inequality. So there is a need for positive discrimination towards these marginalized group so that they are able to compete in such a society where there had a lot of discrimination takes place. However, in today, there were not such a rigid system as were those in days, as our constitution has provided greater rights to untouchables, like Article 70, which has employed the practice of touchability practices. Now we would look into what was the history of affirmative action in India. The affirmative action began in late 19th and the earlier 20th century in the organized movement in the southern part of India. The anti-Brahmin movement rose demand to reserve certain number of the seats for the non-Brahmins in the public sectors and the educational sector. The Mysore government in the 1921 also had reserved a seat for such minorities classes. Till 1930, the reservation were only in the context of the educational sector and the public sector. There would no demand in political arena, but from 1930 onwards, reservation were implemented in the political arena as well. As we know, the Baba Sahib Ambedkar ji had raised the demand to reserve certain number of seats for minorities group, but Gandhiji has totally opposed any kind of separation for Harijans from Hindu community. Harijan is the term which he used for untouchables, means the people of Lord. So the both leaders struggled intensely over this issue, and finally the consensus was the Pune Pact, according to which there would indeed a reserved seat for the minorities classes, but these candidates would be elected by a general electorate, and this is enumerated in the Government of India Act 1935. So in today, we know that SC has got a reservation of 15% and ST had get a reservation of 7.5%. Now we will look into the OBC's reservation. In 1961, the then ruling Congress had rejected the national reservation for OBC. However, it granted a discretion to the state. If they deem necessary to provide state reservations for OBCs. In 1978, the Janata government, which were ruling at that time, had appointed a Mandal Commission under the chairmanship of the P.P. Mandal, which had further extend the OBC's reservation to a national level. The commission recommends that there should be a reservation for OBCs in a central services, in a public sector undertakings and the educational systems as well. But because of the prior SC ruling that had set a limit of 50% national reservation, the recommendation amounting to the most suitable 27% reservations for OBCs. But it, however, got implemented in the 1990 by a Janata government under the premiership of the VP Singh. But one point here is to note is that all OBCs are not included in reservation. There is a creamy layer which got excluded from the reservation. There is one case, Indra Sahni versus the Union of India, in which our Supreme Court judgment is creamy layer should not be included in the reservation. Creamy layer are the category of the OBCs who are highly economically and socially advanced. Now we would look into what was the reservation for women. As we know, due to the patriarchal society, women had subjugated and oppressed in society, and as well as their family and well. So they have not equal say, not have equal rights, basically even not allowed to go outside their home and were engaged only into household works and bearing children only. And also their representation were very low. So there is need for such affirmative action in women's also. One landmark in our history is that there is the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment, which seeks to provide 1/3 reserved seats in local governing bodies for women, that is in panchayats and in municipalities, which ensure their grassroots level participation in decision making process. Women reservation bill was first introduced in the 1996 by the H.D. Deve Gowda government and yet has not been passed, which seeks to provide 1/3 reserved seats for women in all governing bodies, including national, state, and the local governing bodies. By 2010, however, it had been passed by the Rajya Sabha, but it is still pending. It is pending in the Lok Sabha. So now basically we would also see in our constitution that has provided marginal groups greater rights, like Article 14, Article 15 Clause 1, Article 16, Article 46, which ensure equality and protect and promotes their economic and the social interest of the weaker sections of the society. Now we would look into what was the experiences of the people. Many argues that reservation establish a caste line society rather than to strive a caste free society. Criticism also come that reservation is replaces one form of discrimination to another. That is, a highly educated student is replaced by a low educated student, and it will destroy our competitiveness, our economy, competitiveness of our economy, which would not be beneficial for us. Even many Dalit had argues that the beneficiary of the reservation are from upper caste state who are able to pay bribes as demanded by the employers to access to the jobs, but there are also favor points in it. Many said that reservation had provided a platform or a space for the backward classes of the society, so through which they can meet to each other and break the silence which is imposed by the poverty or the disadvantage or the other disadvantage which they had historically faced. It would be wrong to portray that all upper castes had against the reservation. There are upper castes people to whom equality is the highest principle, and they would embrace the principle of reservation as it is a tendency to move social mobility. Now, so we can conclude that given the structural inequalities and the discriminatory nature of India, Indian state had provided a compensatory treatment for the underprivileged sections of the society, so that they are able to get compete in such a society, which cover they had provided basically a reservation which cover public employment, central government services, and the educational systems. But we would look that it is only limited to the government sector. It is not extended to the private sector as well. Over the time, there has we can see there is a increase in the representation of the SCs and STs in the political arena as well, which would be beneficial for them as it had to get their personality development. But however, the rate of development was is very slow. So we can conclude that even today, the disparities between the SCs and STs and the non-SC STs continue to exist. Thank you.